In an earlier video, which is referenced above, I started an experiment to see whether I could get additional hand comfort on my bars by angling my brifters in towards the centre of the bar. At the end of that last video, things were looking good. However, I thought I should give it some extra time. I've now been using these brifters like this for about 3 weeks. I quickly got used to the feel of the brifters being angled in. However, they still look a little bit odd to me. One thing I have noticed though is I tend to hold on to the bars between the hoods and the tops, so around about there, a little bit more than I used to. I think that's because my finger isn't being pushed back like that, and therefore my wrist is in a slightly more natural position. I just feel a little bit more comfortable like this now, rather than being on the tops there, which was my previous preferred position. So after a few weeks of use, I've actually got quite used to these now. However, just to check, I decided to look at how the levers were positioned on my touring bike. So I'll talk about that next. Because I got used to the brifters being turned in on my gravel bike, well, it was a bit more than just getting used to it. Actually, slightly prefer it. So I decided to try it out on my touring bike. That's the bike I'm riding now. As you can see, I've turned these in a bit. Actually, it's a little bit less than on my gravel bike. These are about 15 degrees. As with my gravel bike, it hasn't interfered with the braking or the gear changing. And also, as with my gravel bike, I find myself resting on the tops here a little bit more. So as far as this touring bike is concerned, I'm minded to leave these brifters angled in like that. I should say that I started off with these levers on here angled in at about 15 degrees. As I quickly got used to that angle, I decided to increase the angle to about 20 degrees, which is what it's at now. However, I feel that that extra angling in isn't really necessary. So I think I'm going to move them back to about 15 degrees. Another advantage is that I can adopt this position more readily. My wrists are quite a bit straighter, and therefore this position is actually more comfortable than when the hoods were straight. That's another reason to keep them angled in. I quite like having my brifters turned in. Should you turn your brifters in? Because it really doesn't cost anything and it's easy to put back. You might as well give it a go. I would suggest starting off with a small angle, 5 or 10 degrees, and then if necessary increase that angle. If not, you can always put it back. There are minor improvements in the comfort, and if I hadn't tried it, I wouldn't be worrying about it. But as I have tried it, and it's marginally better, I think I'll keep the brifters angled in like this. I hope you found this video useful. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, and if you're in the mood, subscribe.